To continue, talk to me about the border zone.
The Minefield? What's there to talk about? You just gotta watch your step. I was making a quick stop by the generalist after a routine search of the village. I was trying to see if he had anything useful for me, but the old bastard started sharing a little too much information. Come to find out, our old pal had obtained a rather discomforting rash in his southern region from using newspaper after relieving himself. I don't care to get into the details, but he needed toilet paper and some lotion to soothe his, area. Fortunately, I had acquired some lotion from the village, and I figured it wouldn't be too much effort to find some toilet paper. He informed me that he had other jobs needing to be done, and if I helped him with his issue, then he'd help me in return. He followed up asking for some cigarettes and matches as well. I obliged and quickly headed back out. I didn't even make it 10 feet out the door before a barrage of bullets came screaming past. Damn bandits decided to channel their inner rat by camping outside the generalist's front door. I couldn't get a good visual of where he was due to the constant suppression, but at least if I got shot, there was an emergency medical kit in the driver's seat of the van I was tucked behind. Thankfully, he ended up being more concerned with shooting the van to suppress, whereas I was aiming for him. I promptly grabbed what I deemed mine from the van before going to check out the bandit I had just killed. Being caught off guard like that always amped me up, so I decided it was time for a smoke. I started heading back to the cabin. After all, I needed to get some cigs for the generalist, and after taking out a rat outside his front door, I didn't see why he would have an issue if there was a cigarette or two missing. I stashed most of the equipment I had found before heading back to the generalist. I grabbed a pack of smokes and divided out some matches from my supply for him. I couldn't get the image out of my head of that poor bastard rambling on with a cigarette barely hanging on as he tries to ease his rash, squatted in a corner somewhere near his shop. At least I hadn't lost my humor, although crude. Regardless what it was he needed, he had equipment that would prove useful for surviving the minefield and accessing Vostok. So whatever he needed done, I was gonna do.
Ilmojakin se on pidellyt. Katoa.
He handed me an alarm clock in return for the smokes. Thankfully, he left the batteries in it. I was able to use it to get a rough estimate of the time of day, and although it was late, I decided to take advantage of what I had and took the opportunity to try and locate some TP for our friend. struggled to get accurate shots on target due to the bandit having more concealment. I decided to close the gap and attempt to gain an angle on him. It wasn't long before he noticed my change of position, however, as he continued to engage. I sought out some cover in a red shack and tried to get one last visual in hopes to neutralize the threat. I made the decision to enter the house even though the bandit was still up. I figured I could quickly do some searching while he was busy trying to triangulate where I was. My main priority was to find what the generalist needed. Even if it was something for his ass, you never know how bad you need something until it's gone. I did some quick searching and was able to grab an emergency medical kit and some rations from a dead bandit in the house. The rest of the house was practically empty, but that was to be expected. I changed my plan and decided to head back to the cabin to drop off what I acquired and get some rest before planning out my next couple of runs. I hadn't slept through the night. Frustration started to increase as it was becoming more difficult to avoid the darkness. I figured it wouldn't accomplish anything to just sit around, so at least I could take a trip back to the generalist and search some small areas around his shop. I decided to deviate off course on my way and hit the campsite just behind the shop. Some bandit must have gone out for some late night scavenging, because I was able to find a decent sized stash in one of the tents. The generalist would have probably lost his head if he knew some bandit had a roll of toilet paper a couple 100 feet from him. I secured the toilet paper and quickly snatched what I could before making the delivery. The generalist was pleased. Although confused at obtaining the delivery this late, he gifted me a Narva for my efforts.
Taas jotain.
Although it was an incandescent light that was generally weaker, it was better than nothing. He gave me a list of items he was looking for to assist a blind woman who resided in the border zone. He required a toolbox, batteries, box of nails, some duct tape, and a bucket. I had 3 of the 5, so I decided to head back and rest up before searching for the rest. Promptly started my morning with my usual route. I was right in my hopes that the bandit at the campsite hadn't moved yet, because I was able to obtain exactly what I was looking for from another tent in the camp. I can only imagine the look on the bandit's face when he realized he had been swiped a second time. I ended up with quite the hookup for those supplies. The generalist supplied me with a ballistic helmet and a pair of grenades. This was a big step forward for what was ahead. With the added confidence knowing I had more protection, I decided to head into the village to look for more supplies needed by the generalist. Even though I had more protection, that didn't mean I was bulletproof. As I started searching, I thought of ways to change my approach into the village. Although taking the familiar route was beneficial for supplies, the bandits were quickly catching on to my patterns and route of travel. I wasn't opposed to fighting, but I didn't want to catch myself walking into my own demise. I decided to continue to search the structure instead of relocating, and to my surprise, my luck hadn't left at all. Upon searching a chest towards the back of the house, I found a KP-31. The gun itself is practically a war trophy. It was a submachine gun used by the Finnish military mainly during World War II. I remember a Finnish troop from my squad always nerding out over the guns, especially this one. Closely resembling a PPSH-43, it had the propensity to tear anything to shreds with its heightened rate of fire. I couldn't help but to think that the generalist would probably want his hands on this in return for something I could find useful. I finished up my search, but the pain from my last engagement started to kick into overdrive. I could feel myself overwhelmed with stress. I realized my injury was worse than perceived, and I needed to patch myself up. At this point, it started to feel like my luck was catching up to me, because getting back proved to be just as dangerous. I made it back without any further engagement and patched myself up. On my way out, I grabbed the drum mag for the KP-31 I had found a couple days prior. I figured if the weapon had actual use, I might be able to gain more on a trade from it. I headed back out and decided to risk it and search some of the houses close to the cabin. I dispatched the bandit and rushed into the house to start my search. I was immediately met with an additional KP-31 drum mag. I remember feeling unstoppable. I had to quickly recenter myself and stay on course. If I let myself get too comfortable, I could end up being a random bandit's lucky loot drop. The rest of the house was more or less empty, but I was able to acquire some much needed ammo and an optic. I took what I could and continued on to the next set of structures. I remember feeling on edge due to my sporadic sleep and the increasing amount of gunfights. Thankfully, there was plenty of snus hidden around that helped me maintain focus, as well as a buzz. next house didn't have anything of use, so I decided to move towards some bigger structures on the outskirts of the village. Although I was risking potentially losing the valuable equipment I had at the time, it wouldn't serve me any better if I was dead. It almost kept me more on guard in a sense. Weird how your brain works in moments like those. Almost like losing your life alone isn't bad enough. I decided I had found enough and headed towards the generalist. He was ecstatic at what I'd brought. He explained how he had gotten hands on them during his conscript service, but they would never allow him to let loose full auto through a drum mag. Thanks to my findings, he had free will to sling lead at his leisure. He swiftly rewarded me with the best equipment he had stashed. Now, equipped with a plate carrier and level 4 plates, I actually had a decent chance at making it through the minefield. He threw in an ACOG as well before filling me in on additional supplies he needed. I rushed back to the cabin to drop off my kit and restock my equipment. I had built a reputation with the generalist. He would call me the Bloodhound. Didn't matter what it was he needed, I'd go find it for him, even if it meant searching for blood to obtain it. It was necessary. It was messy. It was survival. But not meaningless. I helped him. In return, he helped me. What he wanted was simple in theory. He talked about airdrops that would occasionally come through providing rations. The last few rounds were littered with Nordic humanitarian junk, as he called it. All he wanted was a finished dinner. Regardless of it being a complete meal, he was committed to only having finished food on his plate. He listed 4 items: pea soup, mustard, salty licorice, and coffee. Assuming it would be easy enough since I already had coffee at the cabin, that left me with 3 items to find. And I was going to find them, no matter the cost. I had found the mustard on my initial clearance. That meant 1 item left since I already had the coffee and the soup at the cabin. I was hopeful it would be a quick one and done, but things hardly ever turn out that way. I was caught off guard. I had to maintain security on the house nearest to me, but I'm sure the damn light gave me away. I returned fire enough to get that damn bandit off me while I patched up. I was in a bad spot. I had an entire house behind me that was unclear, and a shooter who had the drop on me. I had to act fast. There was too much at stake. I remember how the bastard taunted me. Bandit scum. They never wasted a moment to express in all their glory waves of false confidence through words. It's one thing to get the drop on the enemy, injure them, and think that the battle is already won. But truly, it is never finished until one of us lies dead. I had to find cover, reposition, gain any kind of advantage, angles, anything. Panic started to set in. I needed to regain control. It was almost like these bandits were accustomed to the darkness. You can't see them, but they can see you. I needed to survive. I needed to destroy the enemy. I had found some good equipment in the house, but that didn't fix my problem. I couldn't hear the bandit anymore, assuming he was hiding. I made the decision to take the fight to him. My senses heightened as I cleared the house. Fear, adrenaline, anxiety. I had to make it work for me, not against me. People who say they aren't afraid when it's life or death are liars. It's what you do with that fear that defines you. If I was going to make it to Vostok, I needed to utilize my fear, push through it. I continued to scan. The ambience of the woodline and wildlife flooded my ears. It was like I was searching through sound, trying to get a lead on his location through the crunch of snow under his feet. But all I heard was the wind. The cold was piercing through. I needed to get back to the cabin and heat up. The fight would have to wait. Thankfully, I was able to find a car battery and a couple suppressors inside the house. For now, I had enough. I needed to wait until morning to go back out. I armed myself with a Glock I had found. I had an excess of 9x19 ammunition compared to 7.62, and I found it more suitable to conserve my rifle ammo if I was clearing the village. I sorted the rest of the supplies for the generalist on the dining room table for when I acquired the rest, and headed out to continue my search. I retraced my steps. To my surprise, I had missed an RK-95 sitting on a small table. The rest of the house was empty from my prior search, so I continued back through my path, hitting the red building that I had missed earlier. One of the cabinets lay in AKM. It was in better condition than the one I had on me, so I swapped them out. With the increasing amount of gunfights I was getting into, the last thing I needed was for my main weapon to fail on me. I heard the raspy cough of a bandit, most likely enduring the effects of being out in the cold for too long. I was hopeful it was the same one that had shot me earlier. Maybe now was the time I would have the drop on him. I was tunnel visioned, consumed by the thought that I had killed the bandit who almost killed me. I rushed to confirm my kill. The only thing on my mind was ensuring he was dead. The bandit lay dead in the snow. I quickly realized I had exposed myself in my rush to confirm my kill. I retrograded back and decided to search the campsite on top of the hill. After searching the camp, I headed towards the heart of the village. My intent was to not only find what the generalist was needing, but to try and gain a surplus of medical supplies before venturing out to the border zone. I had spotted something behind a fallen fridge. It was a guitar. I remember playing guitar for my squad of Finnish troops when we would be camped out in the field for training exercises. I still remember how shocked they all were that I was able to sneak that into my gear bag. It was fun until a training cadre finally found it and swiftly smashed it over a rock. I thought to myself how those moments meant so much, no matter how small. I mourned over my allies for a moment before pressing on. I could hear the frustrated cursing of a bandit. It sounded like he couldn't find what he was looking for. I needed to try and get an angle on him if I had any chance of clearing the rest of the village. I looted quietly before attempting to advance. His laughter sounded maniacal. These bandits were pure evil. There was no mercy shown anymore. Killers are the only thing that roams rampant here. I was cautious, calculated. It would take one corner of a room to end it for me. My breathing felt labored. Stepping into the house felt like its own war zone. Death could be hiding anywhere. village was swarming with bandits. I had a feeling they were all trying to live out of here and take over the area for good. I grew tired of those damn rats. It brought me joy to watch them fade at my hand. After clearing the house of the filth, I was able to find a sleeping bag and a bedroll. These were essential items I would need if I wanted to make the trip to Vostok. I was able to find an additional med kit. I assumed the 2 bandits I had taken care of were camping out of here since the night prior. It was time to head back. I needed to ensure I got the supplies to the generalist as promised. I made some modifications to my rifle before stepping off. With the increase of bandits, I needed any advantage I could get. I was searching faster than usual by this time, but I didn't need to take my time. I was looking for key items, and it didn't matter where I was. The echoes of the bandits' voices filled the air like a plague. I still don't know how I survived the encounter. It was like a nightmare. Once again, I had to utilize valuable medical equipment when it could have been avoidable. But I took it as it was. I couldn't change the outcome, but I could improve moving forward. Anything was better than being dead. I had hit a good stash of cold medicine, which also contained some painkillers. I remembered that the generalist was needing some, although at the time I couldn't remember how many he requested, so I continued to search for the original items. The camp was bare. I figured the bandits had realized my new route and stopped stashing their gear in the tents. Either way, I needed to move back down to the village and search one last time. I had picked the house clean. Although minimal in supplies, I was more content with the shot I had just made on the unsuspecting bandit. Wonder what he was thinking just before 762 canoed his head open. This thought consumed me, and I didn't know why. It was an unnatural thought, but at this point, who could say what was normal or rational anymore? Frustration grew as I had repeated more of the same patterns, looting and searching the same houses, hoping to find what was required. Although dedicated, I pondered with myself on why I cared so much to supply the generalist with what he requested before going out into the border zone. He had already supplied me with more than enough. Maybe it was psychological. He was the only person not trying to rid me of the world. Maybe I felt I owed it to him. After all, without him supplying me, would I even stand a chance trying to get to Vostok? I was swiftly reminded that I didn't have time to rationalize my thoughts as a Mosin round blew by me. A new threat was near, and I needed to handle it before there were no thoughts left to have. I got sloppy. In a rush to evade the shooter, I rushed into the building, not clearing with intent. A mistake like that in Vostok could not happen. I may have plugged that bandit, but up against a trained enemy would have yielded a different outcome. I finally made it back to the generalist. I decided to rummage through his trash before telling him I couldn't find what he was looking for. It was reminiscent of the bandit having a bucket just outside his shop a few prior. Either he was playing tricks on me, or I had gone insane. The last item he needed was sitting next to him the entire time. I rushed back to the cabin, grabbed the rest of the supplies, and ran back to turn them into him.
se homma käy?
It was done. I felt relief, but also nervous, as now it was finally time to enter the border zone. I was only far enough in the minefield to be visible to the towers before I was littered with frag from a mine. Somehow it only caused lacerations and some pretty heavy concussion, but at least I was still alive. I continued forward, my eyes glued to the ground. The mines weren't the only problem. The shooters were Russian security force personnel. They were trained specifically in fighting from defensive positions. The moment I scanned for a threat is the same moment I stepped on a secondary mine. It was almost impossible maintaining focus on both at the same time. That one almost ended me right then and there. I patched myself up as best I could and attempted at taking one of the towers. I was badly concussed by the overpressure of the mines, but somehow I still had my hearing. I wasn't sure what was worse. The enemy was all around me, even in the sky. The calls of their voice pierced through the expanse of the war-torn field. Another shooter had me pinned. I could hear his voice, but I couldn't tell if he was below me or across in another tower. I sent some shots at the tower across from me, but I think my eyes were deceiving me. I rushed down only to find out the shooter was engaging me from the base of his tower originally. I neutralized him and realized that I needed to reposition and find some cover ASAP. worked my way up the second tower. The top revealed the 2 dead security troop. It appeared they were all equipped with RK-95s. Not something you want to be on the opposing end of, especially while outnumbered. The looting was cut short as the helicopter started to make a direct pass over me. I could feel the vibrations of the steel beneath my feet from the sheer power of the rotor blades as the helo passed overhead. It was the closest thing to feeling like you were avoiding some kind of beast. I needed to keep moving. I wanted to finish my recon and get the hell out of there. I was taken back by the troop I had just killed. He cursed at me in perfect English. I was starting to wonder if some of them were contractors like myself, but then again, it didn't really matter. They were still the enemy. I had killed the bastard that had me pinned, but he was the least of my worries. The cold kicked into overdrive almost in an instant. It felt like I had been stabbed in my chest. I was on the brink of going hypothermic, most likely due to prior blood loss and all the sweat turning into a thin layer of ice on my skin. The body can turn against you in an instant, begging for survival. I needed to leave before this place became my grave. I was on the brink of passing out, but I spotted a trench in the distance. If it didn't yield a campfire, maybe I could find one last equipment crate. But there was something else waiting for me instead. I had came close to death, but nothing like that. Although my short amount of recon was complete, it almost proved to be useless on multiple occasions. I realized if I wanted to infiltrate Vostok, I needed to use the cover of night through the border zone. It would be the only way I could mitigate avoiding mines and troop at the same time.
Terve.
I decided to stop by the generalist, more so to prove to him that I survived the trip. Luckily, he had a locker that I could use to properly stock my gear. For whatever reason, the old bastard decided to hold on to it for his own. I decided to head back to the cabin. There was still plenty of work left to do.
Tupakkamies on aina tupakkamies.
Although he screwed me over, the generalist had one last piece of equipment to offer, at a price of course. He stated how badly he wanted to leave the village and relocate somewhere new, but some bandits had stolen his car battery along with other items. I had already found an inverter, a couple batteries, and a jerry can, so all I needed left was the battery cables. He offered to give me his only set of PV7 night vision in return. If I wanted to cross the minefield at night, I needed to find those cables. I snatched some guns from a bandit campsite before heading into the village. There was a house with a big garage, so I figured that would be the best place to start my search. My search brought me nothing but close calls with multiple bandits. I was starting to think the only thing I was certain to find was death itself. I reminded myself the importance of obtaining the equipment and pressed on, determined to get my hands on those NVGs. All I had to do first was kill another bandit hiding out around the generalist shop. I wrapped around the building in an attempt to gain a flank. The bandit was stupid enough to think I would stay where I was after attempting to suppress me. I swiftly gained an angle and sent him back to his creator. After dispatching the bandit, I took one last look in the van outside the shop to find something very familiar. I had successfully found a set of battery cables. They were hidden under a duffel, but after some sorting, I was able to grab them and quickly head back to the cabin to retrieve the rest of the items. I remembered to snag some painkillers along with the vehicle equipment for the generalist before heading back out. It finally felt like something was paying off. All I had to do was make it there and back alive. I decided to pre-stage some new weapons and equipment. I didn't want to waste any time getting into Vostok after receiving the night vision. felt some slight relief as I inspected the gear. The generalist wished me luck before I headed out. Now it was time for the real test. If I wanted a true shot at surviving this place, infiltrating Vostok would be my biggest chance. I was ready to put it all on the line, just like my brothers in arms before me.